Welcome to the Virtual CPA Success Show, where we're 100% focused on helping service-based businesses achieve success. Are you a business owner interested in learning how to scale your business? Has your business reached over $1 million in annual revenue? Then this podcast is for you.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Virtual CPA Success Show. I'm your host, Jamie Na, and I'm the Director of Accounting here at Summit CPA. In last episode, we discussed the beginning of Summit CPA with Jody Grunden and Adam Hale, the two partners. Today, we're going to dig in a little bit more on our experience with creative agencies. I'm going to start with Adam to just kind of talk about what creative agencies means for Summit CPA.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. For us, creative agencies, it's kind of a wide breadth, but it's design and dev agencies primarily. Sometimes we'll get folks that are design only or dev only. And then we're also working with a lot of folks in the SEO PPC world. So those are the main two. And then as a result of that, we've also been starting to work with more clients that have products. So, the dream is that annuitized business. So a lot of our design and dev shops have an idea and are taking it to market. So we do have some exposure with that. And some people on the web have come to us just with product only. So those are the three main areas: design, dev, SEO, PPC, and then some product-based work.
Yeah, and I'd say that probably amounts to about, 70% of all of our clients that we that work with on a regular basis. Don't know the exact count, but I think we're probably 100, 105, somewhere in there, clients right now that work with all throughout the United States. And I'd say the majority of them for sure have been in this creative agency space. And I would say over the last probably 5 years or so, I'd say probably 90%, maybe 95% of our new clients have been in this space. So that's been a very heavy concentration for us, especially over the last, probably since 2011, to be in this space and to really understand the vernacular, understand, what, the highs and lows, what makes the creative agency tick. And I think we've got that pretty well under hand now.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last time, but our very first client actually was an email to you, Jody, right? Because I remember going into your office and looking at our website thinking, are they like wanting to fix our website, which, was garbage at the time. So we totally thought that was legit, but it sounded like it was more for VCFO services. But yeah, it was a pretty cool conversation whenever we were able to sit down with them and kind of talk through that stuff.
Yeah, the funny thing about that one was that it came through my junk mail. And of course, I never read junk mail at that point. And so it was one of those things that came through junk mail, never looked at it. Why, for whatever reason, just completely coincidental, decided to look in at that time. And that's when we found that email. And like Adam was saying, it looked like it was a solicitation email. I couldn't really tell the difference. When I talked to Adam about it, he's like, hey, let's just give him a call. And so we did. And it was kind of a fun conversation. It was a company out of Rhode Island called Lullabot. They're a design and dev shop, 60 people, pretty decent size firm. And they wanted to know if we were interested in being their CFO. And prior to that, we really didn't have a CFO engagement that we couldn't actually go and talk to, go and visit on a regular basis. A lot of times they could actually stop by the office or we could stop by their office. In this case, we couldn't do either. And so it was kind of a cool thing. Not only was our first true virtual client, but it was in the creative agency space. And, from there just pretty much went on. They loved the idea. They loved our website. That was the kind of funny thing. So I was cracking on our website. The reason they came to us because they loved our website. It wasn't a traditional accounting firm. It wasn't the stuffy thing that you see a lot of times in websites, especially for like legal or accounting, professional website. It was more of a laid back type of approach. And they really liked that idea. And, that's kind of become, that's basically become our personality as a firm, kind of laid back, doing things a little differently. And it all stemmed from that very first, call in 2011 from a creative agency. And from there, it's been a pretty wild ride ever since.
Yeah, the website's like us. The content's great. The inside, we're just not packaged real well.
So what? So after working with Lullabot, was it love at first sight with creative agencies, or was it kind of took a while for us to figure out why that was the industry we liked, or what made us stick with creative agencies after all this time?
Yeah, for me it was right away. I have a background in marketing, so marketing's always been something that I've really enjoyed a lot. And it's just something that I've always started from day one. Branding's a huge part of what we do, everything. Because we don't sell, when you think about it, we don't sell a tangible product, we sell a service. So anything that we deliver has to appear and be something very professional looking, something that you could, look at it, everybody, 10 people could look at it and say, oh, that's a Summit CPA product, that type of thing. Although it's truly not a product, it's a service. And so when we met with the folks at Lullabot, they had the same demeanor that we have, everything just really clicked. And it was pretty much, this was like, I thought, wow, if we can get a lot of these, dreaming back then, if we can get a lot of companies like this would be great, because we really fit into that culture model, I guess you could say. And it just happened that they started referring like clients to us. It was kind of a cool thing where we picked up a company out of Texas called Four Kitchens. It was probably 2 or 3 months after maybe a little bit longer after we'd worked with Lullabot. And they're like, hey, and it was kind of neat because they referred a competitor, which is kind of weird in the industry. You wouldn't see that with accountants. Accountants wouldn't do that. They wouldn't refer another accountant typically. And it was a kind of a neat thing. And so once it started picking up, where we were working with, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, it was like, this is pretty cool. I'd really like to, really explode this type of thing. But then it's really tempting, right? Because it's like, well, do we want to really narrow our field, or do we want to, do this for everybody? And once we made the decision, hey, let's stick with a narrow niche. Of course, we'll pick up anybody in the regard if they're a good fit, but let's focus on that narrow niche. And when we started doing that, it was, like I said, it was great.
Yeah, it came pretty natural too, just because, we focus on our business as business owners. So we're always looking at our metrics and dialing in our forecast, and being a service-based business. Even though we don't necessarily bill by the hour or do anything like that, it doesn't really matter if you're time and billing, in terms of that scenario, or you do fixed fee or value based like we do. It was just real natural. So it was a really good fit culture wise. It was, we learned a lot from a technology standpoint. So we were able to do some back and forth sharing there. And then in terms of the metrics and growing the business and everything, it was very similar to our business. So it was just real natural. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's definitely a very close industry. So I think that definitely helped. Can you expand on that a little bit, Jody, and how that helped and how it was to find conferences and how we really grew from there?
Yeah, when I, we were deciding at that point, back in 2011, Lullabot was a distributed company. And at that time, we'd never even heard of a distributed company, because there weren't that many. There were probably 25, 30 in the nation, so it was a very small group of people or companies. And we thought, hey, this would be kind of cool if we could do something similar to that. And so when we decided to really take the plunge, we attended a few conferences. One was out in California called Yonder. And from there, it was one of those deals where, all these distributed companies, we had a kickball company, there were marketing companies, all these really cool group of people were hanging out. And it was like, this is pretty neat. And it just happened that one of those folks was actually ran basically a leadership type conference called the Bureau of Digital. Carl Smith is the gentleman's name, real great guy, real good friend. And he asked at that point, of course we didn't know each other. He asked at that point, hey, would you be interested in doing this in front of a group of leaders, leaders in this industry? I'm like, well, yeah, this would be great. He's like, have you had any marketing experience? I'm like, yeah, sure. I definitely speak in front of people. That's not a big deal. And he's like, well, hey, would you be interested in doing this in a couple of weeks? And it just kind of kicked off of there. We started meeting with him, going through that. And then, he asked if we could do additional ones. And it really kind of, sparked that thought leadership, where we started becoming the thought leader in this industry. And the cool thing about it was it started from just a real one company back in 2011 to where we started picking up, 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 companies a month, helping them out with strategic planning and KPIs and, all that kind of good stuff that really helped the business grow. And so it was a really cool thing. And then the nice thing about it is that we've had other companies approach us asking for different things like Soda and Drupal and others to talk in front of their group of people to help them become successful, I guess, or help them grow, help them create a vision. And it's been a pretty cool thing from there.
Great. So, Adam, can you describe our ideal fit for a client? So, anything from size to location and anything that really describes our ideal client outside of obviously being inside a creative agency?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the geographic location, I mean, we're coast to coast. I mean, we typically work with agencies that are in the United States or at least have an office in the United States. So we have others that obviously have contracted relationships or maybe co-located outside of the United States. In terms of the size, we actually geared our packages towards different size levels because we know that smaller agencies need different things than larger agencies. So on our website, we have transactional services, which might be the under 10 shops that are just looking for some compliance help. It's really tax driven and structure driven, just wanting to make sure they're doing the right things. And we stay on top of things like R&D credits and really looking ahead on that. Then the next step up is really those agencies from about 10 to 20 people where you haven't maybe formalized a big leadership team yet, but you're starting to get the COO. The owner's not involved in every single thing day to day. So that's kind of our controllership level service. And then our VCFO service is typically about 20 people or more in terms of agency size, because again, at that point, you've probably created a small leadership team. And so we join that team as the financial person, and we kind of take the reins as far as that's concerned. So from a people size, and of course, that really depends on, there's also other factors that are included in there. So we do have some smaller agencies that might be on the VCFO side, but typically that's where they fall. From a revenue standpoint, we start talking to folks right around $1 million in revenue, in annual revenue, all the way up to 50 million. But I'd say our core is from anywhere from 5 to 20 is where the majority of our agencies that we work with land. But we do work with tax only as well. So for some of those startup agencies, our tax director is really great since he knows the space and the industry and the R&D stuff. We will do tax only for some folks just to kind of get them started and go.
And a recent question was asked, well, how many clients do we have that typically has some accounting person on staff that helps out? And we typically find about 30% of our clients, we actually do the back office stuff where we're actually that accounting team. And then the other 70% typically have somebody on staff. And so that's where we see the 5 to 50 million that Adam's mentioning there. We typically will sit alongside an existing, team of accountants or even a CFO in a lot of cases where we'll help a CFO migrate through the landmines and really kind of help them create vision, because we can bring a lot of vision outside, because we've got, a lot of times the CFO will only know how their company's doing, and we can bring the color of, hey, here's how the industry is doing, here's what's working, here's what's not working. A lot of times you can incorporate those ideas into their business model. So, it's kind of a unique thing where we can do as little, like Adam was saying, from the tax return to, as much as, everything, tax return, accounting, and CFO work.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, because we do back office work for, like you said, about a third of our clients. But the CFO piece is another interesting one. So whenever we see clients getting up closer to that 20 million or 20 to 50 million range, a lot of times they will have a CFO on staff, or some of the agencies that have multiple partners, maybe the partners in the CFO wearing the CFO hat. So we kind of come in that FP&A role, like financial planning and analysis, where our focus is really on forecasting and just, providing some clarity around the numbers and the reporting and everything. So we kind of are the plus one on the team to help that roll out. Because oftentimes whenever you get that big, the CFO's role kind of gravitates more operational stuff. So they're working more with contracts and doing more day-to-day stuff. So they don't really have time to oversee the day-to-day financials and the forecasting and such. So we do all that and then queue it up for them.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what makes Summit unique, especially from other CPA firms I've talked to. They're kind of backwards from us. They really want the accounting, they really want the back office, and they'll throw in the CFO or controller stuff, where we're kind of the opposite. We really want the controller and CFO and forward-looking stuff. And if they want us to do the accounting, we do have those skills in-house. So I think that definitely is unique in the accounting industry.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, the other piece, though, is that I think what makes us unique, too, is everything's a two-person team minimum. So whether or not we're doing tax or whatever, so we bring the VCFO, whose focus is more on strategy and kind of staying on top of the plan, and then also a senior accountant, which is kind of equivalent to a controller. So to Jody's point, even if we're not doing the back office, the controller is kind of the go-to person for the accounting person in-house. So they're kind of watching over things, helping close the books, making sure things are done accurate and timely, and then rolling that up to the VCFO. And then the VCFO is then focusing on clarifying direction through forecasting and metrics and those kind of things. So that 2-person team is also unique because a lot of times it's a solo person. We do that for a lot of reasons. One, just because those mindsets are totally different is the primary, but it also offers up some good redundancy at the service level as well, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of times companies will come to us with that bookkeeper in-house and they'll say, is this going to be awkward? And they're going to say, actually, within a couple months, your bookkeeper is going to love us because they're going to have another accountant to bounce ideas off of and talk through. So it's actually a really good situation to be in. And it's one of the ones we really like working through. So when companies do come to us, Jody, how should their finances be? Should they be, can they be a mess? What range of companies do we see coming to us when it comes to their finances and where they're at?
Yeah, it depends who you're talking to, our staff or us.
Right.
And our team would love it to be perfect coming in, but of course that's very rarely the case. A lot of times they really have no idea how good or bad their books are when they come to us. So, a typical question we'd ask during the prospecting call, we'd ask, how your books are in good shape, and they're like, oh yeah, our books are in great shape, blah blah blah, and then we get into it and find out that they're a disaster. And so it ranges pretty big time, and it really depends on the quality level of the person that's actually working on it, to where maybe they do come in, they're great, where other times they don't. So it really makes us no difference, because we actually go through an onboarding phase where we're actually cleaning up the books, bringing the year-to-date numbers to where they need to be, and really kind of fixing things, rearranging the chart of accounts so it's industry norm type of thing, so that we can compare from one company to the next. So we're doing a lot of the restructuring behind the scenes in that first 6 to 8 weeks anyway. So as part of it, we're tying the tax return out and just making sure that everything is very clean. And the reason being is because if it's garbage when we're presenting, strategy, our strategy is going to be garbage. So it's that garbage in, garbage out concept that we talk about a lot. So we need to make sure that they're clean and that our CFOs are all on the same page and understanding exactly what's good and what's bad with them.
Yeah, the big thing is as Jody mentioned, tying back the tax returns key. I mean, we've gotten a couple where it's like, it's not the same company. You're just like, what the hell? But for the most part, we're going to be doing some tweaking anyway to get that chart of accounts in alignment with the industry. Revenue rec is usually probably the biggest thing that we need to make sure we understand, how the client does it, how we recommend to do it, if there's any kind of changes that need to be done, if we need to go restate stuff so we can kind of tell, what's going on, because those metrics are really relying upon good revenue recognition. So if it's cash basis, we got to figure that out. We don't want to yank that view away from somebody if they're used to seeing it that way. So we'll kind of keep it and run it parallel for a little while until we can kind of bridge the gap of how we really should be kind of looking at some of this stuff. But, so we're super sensitive to that as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the chart of accounts. I think that's also important just to bring in there, is that we do compare clients to each other. We don't say, okay, you're compared to this client, but we do put you in a database and say, what we're used to seeing is a gross profit of 50%. And if the chart of accounts isn't correct, that's where it really can get skewed. So we want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples, and we aren't telling one company, your gross profit's amazing because you don't have any payroll costs in there. Well, everybody else has all their payroll costs inside of, or their admin payroll costs outside of there, but their production employees within there. So we do want to make sure we get those chart of accounts correct so we can compare companies across the board.
For sure.
So I would like to kind of hear some stories. So we've been working with creative agencies for a while. I'd love to hear some success stories about companies that have come in and some ideas of what we've felt has been successes with these companies. So I'll start with you, Jody.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one is just simply that, we give them a vision. So before they're kind of just going along and whatever happens, and they really don't know why, or they don't know really what to expect going forward. So the biggest thing is giving them a clear vision of what they should expect going forward, so they can kind of test the waters a little bit, and so they kind of plan a little bit. And in doing so, we tell everybody, you need X amount of dollars in the bank, and that's one thing that they can strive for. And the kind of the funny thing about it is, and Adam made this really kind of funny point at one of the conferences we were at, is that, in order to achieve or to build cash, you got to have profit. And, profit, you're talking amongst a lot of creative agencies, was a bad word in a lot of cases. It's like, well, we want profit. We want to, give all the money to our employees, blah, 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 which is great. But in order to do that, you have to have profit. And profit was the other thing. So we were teaching them, hey, here's the profit that you need to have in order to build this cash to the amount of cash that you need. And I would say just from the very, very first client on, they'd come to us and they'd have a lot of money in their line of credit. And, we would give them the vision, hey, here within 2 years, we can get that down to where you have nothing on your line of credit and you're building a cash reserve of $1 million. And, maybe they're a $5 million company and we're kind of going along and they're like, this would be great. And we give them that vision. It's kind of funny. Once they have that vision, they tend to it. And so, that's kind of, I think, without singling out even one client, I would say that's pretty much a trend for, over half our clients at least, is just simply giving that vision to do it. One particular case is kind of an offset one is that I had a company when I was at a conference, give me a call. At that time, I was actually doing virtual CFO stuff. This was probably back, about 6 years ago. And the company, brand new company, called, we engaged, they've been with us for about maybe 3 months. And the owner, while I was at a conference, it was probably 10 o'clock at night, just started lighting up my phone. It was like, and I couldn't answer it because I was in with a bunch of other people. First of all, I didn't realize that, I had my phone on, silent. So I didn't realize he was actually calling. And then after about, it was probably 10 phone calls from probably 10 o'clock to 2 in the morning, he's lighting my phone up. And I finally reached back with him the next morning. I go, hey, what's going on? I just saw you called me, 10 times. Everything okay? And he's like, hey, I've got this big deal going by, tomorrow, and I've got to put this contract in place. And so we're talking through the contract, and he goes, I think it's about a $400,000 contract, and we're talking through it. And he's like, but I don't really know. I don't want to, limit myself on it. What do you think? And I go, well, probably the easiest thing is just simply going back and asking them, what are they budgeting for this? And he's like, well, they won't tell me that. And I go, well, how do you know that? Just ask them. And he's like, okay. He's kind of like a sigh, like, okay. And so he went back, and the next day, all of a sudden, my phone's lighting up again. I'm thinking, oh no, what'd I do? He just lost his contract. I'm thinking, you think the worst, right? And it's like, oh, should I even answer the phone? I'm like, okay. So I answer the phone. He goes, oh, dude. He goes, you were awesome. He goes, you definitely earned your money. And I go, well, why do you say that? And he goes, well, I did just that. I went back and asked him how much you got budgeted for the contract. And he told me it was $1.2 million. He's like, oh my gosh, if I would have came back with $400,000, I might not even got the contract for one. But then it gave us so much leeway. We could do so much more things because we had no idea that they were planning on spending it. And our profit margin just got a little bit bigger. And he goes, and it's all because they just asked that simple question. And it's kind of funny because those type of questions, we don't think twice about it because we hear about it all the time from all of our clients. It's just kind of a natural thing. But it was a cool thing. I could just bring that up in casual conversation, and it made this company an extra $800,000 that they didn't have the time before.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is that it's just the small stuff. So, it's not like there's this huge silver bullet, and especially with a lot of design and dev shops. Their cash ebbs and flows, their sales do. The biggest thing that I noticed probably working with clients more closely and what I really enjoy is like a long time ago, whenever you just meet with a client once a year or a couple times a year, you knew the client, you understood their business a little bit, but not really good. And you knew their information was kind of okay. Well, whenever the client had a question for you, like what Jody asked, you weren't prepared to give them a good answer. You're like, well, it depends. If it's this, it's this. If it's this, it's that. And then you'd say, well, I'd have to dig in. And then maybe you have to do some research for a couple of weeks, those kind of things. Because we work with the clients on like a daily and a weekly basis, we have that information ready. So not maybe just with advice like that, but anything. It's like, hey, I'm thinking about hiring 3 people. Hey, it doesn't matter. Like the clarifying direction is kind of our main focus. And just having us on call whenever you need us for those little small one-off things that happen, I think that's the thing is, business is a big ship and you can't turn that thing really fast. It's a lot of like small moves and to get to the right place. And that's what we help with. We design where you want to go. We show you the best path to get there. And then when life happens and we get off track a little bit, that's how we use the forecast just to kind of dial ourselves back in. We have to reroute whatever. And being able to work with clients on a daily and weekly basis gives us the ability to do that. So I think peace of mind is what you would probably hear from most of our clients.
Oh, for sure. And I would say the cool thing about that is no matter how junior or senior that CFO is that we have so many on the team is that they can just, pounce over and say, hey, Audrey, how did your clients handle this? And they can get back to them right away and say, hey, Audrey's got this great idea. This worked for her and her clients. And so it's kind of cool because we can bounce different ideas off of different people throughout our team, no matter if they've been with us for, 6 months or, 10 years. It really makes no difference. We leverage each other so well that it really brings a high quality service to the clients.
Yeah, we're super collaborative on the back end. I mean, it's definitely like kind of a brain trust in terms of, information sharing. And so we're constantly on the back end going back with different experiences and making sure the whole team knows. That way we can leverage each other or each other's contacts if needed. So that's a great point too. So instead of getting a person, as great as Jody is, he doesn't have all the experiences. I know you won't hear me say that because we're going to edit that. We're going to edit that one out.
That won't make the reel.
Hold on. As great as he thinks he is, it's not. Being able to lean on Jamie or Jake or Audrey or Tom or whomever on our team is a huge benefit. So. And then just statistically overall, like Jody said, I think the proof is that a lot of our clients have had the ability to build their cash reserves, stop using the line of credit, use their own cash, build their tax reserve, because it's about being deliberate. Exactly what he said. There's no science behind it. It's like gravity. You show somebody where they need to be and how they can get there. They make all the right decisions, and kind of it's just the little things in the back of your mind to move you along that add up to that big stage. And for us, it's cash because that's what's king. So.
And I think there too, I think that the key is being in one industry so much, that's the value of the conferences. Like we go to these conferences and we go to these events, and I'm there to learn as much as I am to educate. I'm there to sit there at the bar at 10 o'clock at night and talk to someone about what they're doing. And they might tell me an idea. I'm like, that's a great idea. And I can bring it back to the CFO team and say, hey, there's companies out that are doing X, Y, Z, and then we can pass that on. And so that's one of the value of us being so in touch with this industry is we get that advice from not just our clients, which Jody said is, somewhere between 60 and 70 digital creative clients, but we get it from these events as well, where there's people there that we've talked to probably 5 times that aren't our clients that we can use as a knowledge base as well. So I think that's one of the advantages of this industry.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I mean, that's the thing is these folks, I mean, whenever we're able to leverage the other experiences and just learning, I mean, we're business advisors. So I was actually just talking to one of our CFOs about that the other day. So even though, nobody puts baby in the corner. We do finance, but we have a finance lens, right, over the entire side of the business. So we want to hear about what's going on in marketing. We want to hear what's going on in operations because that helps us craft the plan. And that way, whenever you come up with an idea and we need to flush it out, we can go, wait a minute, isn't that contrary to what we were saying over here and what we're trying to do? So we need that holistic view. Again, we look through a finance lens, but we need to see the whole picture. And I think that's an important point as well. It's that's why we want to join the leadership team. So it's not like you have to carve us out whenever the conversation starts getting, over into a certain area of the business. We need to hear that stuff.
Yeah, I'd make this joke to Adam all the time. A lot of times these digital marketing or creative agencies we're working with are in the marketing space, but it's amazing how many times I have to consult on marketing and have conversations about marketing, even though I'm the accountant. So it's just, it's amazing the amount of knowledge we get from those conferences we go to and the amount of clients we have and things we can talk about outside of just finance through a finance lens. So we can always have that. Well, from a finance point of view, this is what you should think about when it comes to marketing. So it's definitely wide range of things we talk about. So I think that is it for time. I want to thank Jody and Adam for joining us. And then we will be back in another 2 weeks to talk more about the actual virtual CFO role and what that means. So thanks again, Jody and Adam.
Enjoy this episode? Visit our website at summitcpa.net to get more tips and strategies for achieving virtual CPA success. We're here to be a resource in this ever-changing industry.